Good day, chaps, and today's talk is going to briefly cover one of my favourite vehicles, the T-55 Enigma, an Iraqi attempt to up-armour its tanks to face the threat of Iranian anti-tank weapons. The Enigma can trace its roots back to the devastating wars between Iraq and Iran that took place from 1980 to 1988, which saw around 500,000 soldiers dead and thousands of tanks destroyed, primarily from missile fire, with neither side completing their objectives until a UN ceasefire was called. Following this war, the Iraqis set about building up their tank fleets again, primarily from vast imports of older Soviet and Chinese models, notably the Type 69 tank, as well as a mix of others, but the Iraqis were not oblivious to the capability of these vehicles, and set about buying or developing solutions to increase their overall effectiveness while on a budget from a wrecked economy. Part of this new project was to design new armour systems to withstand missiles and RPGs, which had claimed so many of their tanks, and one such design was the Enigma armour package, first seen at the Baghdad Arms Fair in 1989 when mounted on a Type 69 chassis. A NATO report from the time stated that the armour was unknown and remains an enigma, thus the phrase stuck. The Enigma package, which surrounds the front of the vehicle and the first two-thirds of the sides, is a composite mix containing steel or aluminium plates with rubber sheeting, which acts as a primitive, although somewhat effective, non-explosive reactive armour of the bulge type, working by distorting and dispersing the penetrating jet of a shaped charge attack via flexing and density shift, thus reducing its energy before striking the main armour. Its overall effectiveness versus APFSDS rounds is more debatable, and certainly of limited use against the long rods of Western tanks, but one must bear in mind it's not designed to resist these, and against something like Hesh it would have proven very effective. Following the capture of an Enigma, both Coalition TOW and Milan missiles were tested against the vehicle's armour, which was able to defeat both warheads. But again, it's worth stipulating this was not designed to engage the types of tank fielded by the coalition forces, and so a direct comparison between this and those is somewhat of a moot point. The armour packets are held in place by a combination of bolts and large hinges on the turret front. This allows easy removal and adjustment, as well as adding additional movement upon being struck, further increasing the energy dispersion factor. This does have pros and cons. It allows the armour to be easily lifted to access the vehicle behind for quick repairs, but also means that on impact the package can be blown off, leaving the vehicle potentially open to a second strike. While the Enigma armour package is heavier and bulkier than cage or chain armour, those are less effective against missiles with a crush fuse or proximity warheads than Enigma is. The Enigma is also sadly touted as poorly made, with little commonality between the vehicles. However, measurements taken from folks who have actually been on several of the vehicles show that this is patently untrue, and that the vehicle's package is fairly uniform over the surviving vehicles. Although the interior contents do differ, but whether from product improvement following testing or later tampering cannot be established. Each Enigma has a total of 32 armour blocks added. 8 blocks of armour in increasing size are mounted on either side of the hull via bolted brackets and measure 21.5 inches thick, while 2 large boxes at 12.5 inches thick are fixed on the upper glacis plate via mounting pins. The right side one is somewhat lower, as to prevent obscuration for the driver's vision. On all vehicles the towing hooks are inset and still exposed. Both blocks also have a large bottom hinge to allow access once unbolted. 2 smaller blocks are added over the vehicle's track guards at 12 inches thick, and the vehicle's original convoy lights are mounted above these. The normal travel lights and driver's infrared light are mounted in a single large bracket on top of the left-hand pack as you face the vehicle. The turret plates are the thickest, adding around 37 inches of protection from shaped charge attack, with 5 or more layers inside. The front right plates are hinged on a large spring to allow easy lifting of the blocks to prevent the driver from becoming trapped. The left side plate has no spring system, as this would obstruct the cover for the L2 lunar infrared spotlight mounted above it. All the turret plates are angled down so as to not impede the commander's vision from any angle. Due to the overhang of these plates and the side packs, the right external fuel tanks have been moved back on some examples, and the stowage boxes normally found on the sides are missing. To compensate, the vehicles were fitted with a pair of external fuel drums on the back, and a stowage box was added behind the rear counterweight. The last part of the armour is the rear pack. This extends out by about 1.4 metres from the rear on a steel frame, which is connected by a series of bolted flanges mounted on the rear turret. This serves not only to offer protection, but also as a counterweight to the front armour. 4 boxes ranging between 31 and 31.5 inches wide and 12 inches of depth make up this counterweight. The rest of the vehicle is more or less the same as the T-55, with minor variations based on the original nation's differences, such as mounting points on a lower hull. The engine remains a V55 V12 water-cooled plant coupled to a 5-speed manual transmission. The gun remains the proven D10 T2S firing a selection of ammunition, and each vehicle has a 4-man crew consisting of a driver, gunner, loader and commander, with the last two located on the left-hand side. It has been written that Enigmas were used as command tanks by Iraqi forces. However, inspection inside shows the regular number of radios and no extra equipment provided for command tank roles, so this is quite unlikely. It's not known how many Enigmas existed. Today, about 4 or 5 remain, either in museums or military collections. Overall, the Enigma package did more or less what it was intended to. It provided protection of peer or near-peer weapons for its time, and although somewhat dated, it's, relatively speaking, very similar to early Burlington armour, and shows a good, cheap, easily made armour system to give a vehicle that was woefully obsolete a little bit more staying power. Well guys, thanks for staying and listening. If you've got any questions, drop them below. Hit that like and subscribe button, and until next time, toodle pip.